we would all like to believe that the truth will always out in the end, and on many occasions are able to find the answers to long-running questions. We also hope that the truth behind some of the biggest murder mysteries of the world may one day be revealed to us. However, it's impossible for us to predict what is going to be revealed next about old mysteries. The occasional chance discovery or deathbed confession can lead to new insights into cases that have been dormant for so long people have practically forgotten about them. Sometimes all you need is a fresh pair of eyes offering a new perspective to come along and see something that everyone else had missed. For now, here are 5 classic cold cases. Number 5. The Clermont serial murders. The Clermont murders were one of the most haunting mysteries in Australia for over 2 decades. However, things could finally be coming to a close with the arrest of a suspect and their subsequent charging of all 3 of the murders. 3 young women disappeared in Clermont, a suburb of Perth, Western Australia, in 1996 and 1997. The young women were out clubbing with their friends when they vanished. The remains of 2 of them would be discovered weeks later, and the 3rd one is still missing, presumed dead. The police believed that they were dealing with a serial killer, and so they created a task force to track them down. The main lead that the police had was CCTV footage of a man approaching one of his victims, 23-year-old Jane Rimmer, on the night she disappeared. However, authorities are yet to identify the man in the footage. There have been several suspects investigated, but with no success. After 20 years, it looked like the mystery would forever be unsolved. In 2016, police stormed the house of 48-year-old Bradley Robert Edwards, who had no prior connection to the case, at least none that was publicised. The day after the arrest, he was charged with the murders of the 2 women whose bodies were found, as well as 2 sexual assaults unrelated to the Clermont serial murders. He was charged with the 3rd murder, that of missing Sarah Spears, in February 2018. His trial is due to start any time. Number 4. The Brabant Killer Confession. The Brabant Killers are one of the most shocking and violent chapters of Belgian history. Between 1982 and 1985, a gang committed ruthless attacks and robberies, primarily within the province of Brabant. The victim count came to over 40 injuries and 28 murders. The killers evaded capture for 3 decades. A number of conspiracy theories and hypotheses were formulated to explain their motives. Perhaps the most pervasive theory is that the gang members were from law enforcement and the military due to their proficiency with weapons. A man came forward in 2017 and said his brother confessed on his deathbed in 2015 that he was the head of the gang, a man who had been known as the Giant. The suspect was Christian Bonkowski, and he was indeed a member of a police commando unit. Bonkowski lost his position in the unit in 1981 after he accidentally discharged his weapon. His brother said that he became bitter and a heavy drinker afterwards. In light of the recent developments, Belgian authorities began investigating the former gendarme, hoping to use the information to find other members of the gang. Bonkowski became known to police in 2000 as a potential suspect, but his fingerprints and DNA samples weren't a match for the ones found on crime scenes. Number 3. Valery Percy. Valery Percy was 21 when she was murdered at her home in Kenilworth, Chicago in 1966. Her father was Charles Percy, a soon-to-be senator running an election campaign at the time. The murder of Valery Percy was never solved, and it became one of the most enduring mysteries of Chicago. While the mystery was never solved, new information became available to the public thanks to a New York attorney fighting to have the case files reopened under the Freedom of Information Act 2016. The request was denied by a judge who ruled that the investigation was still ongoing following the Kenilworth Police Department filing a statement and documents. The limited evidence proving the case was still ongoing included several false confessions disproved with confidential information and plans to make use of modern forensic techniques such as DNA testing. In 2014, a suspect was publicly named following a TV station in Chicago getting access to FBI records. The suspect was William Thoresen III, the son of a businessman living in the city. Thoresen was described as mentally unstable and dangerous. The Thoresen family lived near the Percys, and William was known to visit them. Police believe Valery was killed using a bayonet, and Thoresen was known to collect weapons. The suspect refused to cooperate with the investigation and died several weeks later. He was murdered by his own wife, who successfully pleaded self-defense to beat the rap. Number 2. Peter Jarosowicz. Peter Jarosowicz was the Prime Minister of Poland between 1970 and 1980. After he lost his position, he was then expelled from the Polish United Workers' Party and dropped out of politics entirely. He retired to Warsaw with his wife, Elisa Solska. The couple were discovered murdered in their home on September 3, 1992, by their son, Jan. Polish police suspected the murders could have been a revenge attack from the victims of the communist regime, someone trying to find certain documents, or perhaps it was an old-fashioned robbery, albeit an extremely vicious one. Despite the murders gathering national attention, they failed to find solid leads. In 2018, there was a surprising announcement that 3 men had been charged with the murder. The Polish Ministry of Justice, Zbigniew Ziobro, also claimed that 2 of the men had already confessed to the part they played in the murder. The breakthrough came when one murderer revealed their involvement while they were being investigated for a separate kidnapping. He was involved in a burglary ring with 2 other men targeting high-income homes. So it appears that the murder of Jarosowicz's killing was completely unrelated to politics. Number 1. The Black Dahlia. Perhaps the infamous Black Dahlia murder could be on the way to being solved. At least a recent book has claimed to finally uncover the truth, once again casting a light upon the 70-year-old murder of Elizabeth Short. British author Hugh Eatwell believes that Leslie Dillon is the culprit. Dillon worked as a mortician's assistant, which would have given him the knowledge needed to drain and mutilate a body. He also worked as a bellhop and could perhaps have murdered Short at the behest of Mark Hansen. Hansen was a Hollywood businessman who had become obsessed with Short. Dillon became known to police when he attempted to solicit information about the murder from LAPD psychiatrist Dr. Joseph Paul de River. Dillon approached de River under a pseudonym and claimed to be writing a book about psychopaths. De River began to suspect Dillon after a few interviews together, with Dillon theorising that one of his acquaintances, Jeff Connors, was the killer. De Rivers believed that Connors was nothing more than an extension of Dillon's own personality, an imaginary friend that Dillon had concocted. Of course, it later emerged that Jeff Connors was a real person. Eatwell was supported by his theories by retired police officer Buzz Williams, whose father, also a cop, served with the Gangster Squad. The squad originally investigated the Black Dahlia murder. Williams says that both he and his father believed that Elizabeth Short was ultimately murdered by the trio of Dillon, Connors and Hansen, although they had different opinions on who did the deed. Documents from the office of the district attorney indicate that Leslie Dillon was in San Francisco at the time of the murder. However, Eatwell believes that there was corruption in the LAPD, which was why Dillon was never arrested, suggesting there may have been a cover-up.